All right, welcome to the third Engage Your Fanbase podcast on Blab. I am Kara Karma with Engage Your Fanbase and Simon Says Booking and Publicity, and we have joining us today Aaron Harp of Aaron Harp and the Delta Swingers and Love Whip. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Hello.
Hello. And first of all, we had some awesome news on Facebook today.
That's right. We've been not nominated for a Grammy, but we've been accepted to be considered for a nomination for a Grammy. So pretty exciting.
That is exciting.
I didn't even know about that process. That's always something fun to learn about, I guess.
That is pretty cool. That's pretty freaking cool. That's I don't know anything about that process, but
well, it's our label submitted it, and they've accepted a certain number of the artists on our label VizTone. And I guess the people who vote are people who have won Grammys in the past and people who've been nominated in the past. So that's like what's called the Academy. That's what I've kind of read from my friends who are also nominated. So exciting.
So yes.
You're out there and you're a nominator. Please nominate us.
So this is for Aaron Harp and the Delta Swingers. Now you are you guys have two bands. Why don't you tell us about those bands? Because you have a lot of experience in running bands and marketing bands. So tell us about the two bands, and they're very different.
That's right. We have one band that has been actually, speaking of Simon Says, he's been booking us for over 10 years. Maybe even 15. I don't know, but Love been around for a long time. We do electro, dance, rock, but it's been dance music for the last, since 2000, our first album came out. We started out more kind of world music and not acoustic, but like we used to have different instrumentation. It's changed over the years. It's become more electronic, and it's all about dancing. So that's Love Whip. And we have 4 studio albums and 1 live album out. So we have 5 albums out on Love Whip. And that's been our and it's all original.
And then
the Delta Swingers is kind of an extension of my childhood music that I learned from my dad, which is Delta blues. So I'm actually, there's a book being written about the scene I grew up in, which is called Piedmont style blues, which is a finger picking blues with, that came from where I'm from is down in Maryland. So that like the Maryland, Virginia, West Virginia, and sort of south of there, it's just mid-Atlantic blues. I don't know. It's called Piedmont blues. So that's where what I grew up learning. And I started a band around that, and that's the Delta Swingers.
And that's what was nominated to be nominated.
Yes. And we've been around we just put out our album, our very first album last November, but we've been a band for about 5 years.
Okay. So you've got a lot of experience with music marketing, and I would imagine that was a journey. I would imagine that was a long journey to figure out how to do that. And right now, you and I are working together we've just started working together I'm doing some implementation of your systems. And this is why I asked you to come on here today, because I noticed that you've got some systems down pat, and you've really figured out how to reach your fans, and make sure, because a lot of times bands, in my opinion, they're kind of catch as catch come, and they get swept up. Again, there's so much to do. There's so much to do. And there's so much to do. And a lot of times bands don't feel like, a lot of time, this is my impression, is that they feel like they don't want to market. You know, they don't want to feel like salesy. And it's not a matter of being salesy. It's a matter of like, you know, fans want to know what's going on. Fans want to know when you're going to be around because they want to see you. And you've done a really good job of figuring out how to fit in your schedule or, you know, you know, to systematize um, reaching out to your fans. And so I wanted to talk to you about that today. And how did that system evolve and what was it like at the beginning and how hard was that at the beginning? So could you kind of start with how was that at the beginning? What did that look like?
Well, like I said, Love Whip has been around since, you know, way before Facebook, way before even MySpace.
Yeah.
MySpace was a great time, actually, but, you know, I didn't have any systems for that at that time. But yeah, when we started, we used to the biggest thing when we started out was our mailing list. So we had, we always got people, and we still to this day have a big mailing list. So if you go to our show, we will ask you to sign our mailing list and you get something for free. But back then, people would learn about shows through email, which was, you know, the thing back then. And then, we would also on the email list back then get people's home address, and we would sit out on our picnic table in our yard, and we would do, you know, we would send postcards out with our schedule. So
wow.
That was
that must have been time consuming.
Time consuming. Yeah, it was expensive and time consuming.
Yeah.
But it was kind of fun in a way because I come from also a graphic design background, so I would always design these really fun postcards. And another thing that we did a lot back then that we don't really do is make hard poster. They were more like flyers, you know. So we would actually take little bits out of things like the newspaper and make these cool graphics and stick them up around town. And even if we'd play in Northampton, we'd go down there and we'd stick them around town, try to get friends to put them up. But these days it's a lot more digital. So it's good because you can do it all at home. And, you know, people started ignoring their mail anyway. So, you know, I don't think anybody wants to receive a postcard from us. Maybe once in a while, if we're doing like fundraising thing, we'll send out postcards as like we did postcards from Memphis last year when we were in the International Blues Challenge. And that was more of a premium exclusive thing for those people who were, you know, helping us with our crowdfunding. So, I feel like I'm getting away from the question.
No, you're not. This is just an informal discussion. You know, I wonder how much, like, I don't think I've ever gotten something in the mail from a band. I wonder how much you'd stick out doing that. I mean, it's expensive. I can't imagine how expensive that would be, but
yeah, it's a good question because when we first did it, it was something new. And then after a while, it was like, I felt like people were getting more and more junk mail over the years too. Like it's just more and more and more junk mail, and people don't want to deal with more. Like you say, it's like advertising, you know, it feels like an advertisement and it doesn't feel as real of a connection anymore.
Yeah.
Like
it's one way, it's push. It's push, it's
exactly.
connection.
There's
it's about
connecting.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's what I like about, well, MySpace was very interactive too. And Facebook, obviously, everyone's there, everyone's interacting. They may not see what you post. So that's what we're learning now is that we have to make sure everybody knows about our shows coming up on Facebook. But that feels very boring to just hear about the shows. So that's all I've sort of had time to do, but we're trying to put more interesting content out there. But when I put something onto the Love Whip Facebook or the Delta Swingers Facebook, people aren't seeing it because it's a page. So they've like throttled that. Yeah. How many people can see it unless you pay for an advertisement. And then there's a whole discussion around whether musicians want to be paying for supported posts. And a lot of bands in Boston were saying, don't do it. If you do it, we're not going to like have you be part of this you're not a cool musician anymore. You're selling out. But
Really?
that's what they were saying at first. But I think at this point, people who are professional musicians doing it for a living, like we are, they haven't given us a choice. So everybody's kind of starting to jump on the bandwagon. It's like, if I have a big show and I really want to make sure eyes see it, there's two things I can do. I can share it on my page, and I can do a promoted post, and I can post it on my page, and a lot more people see it because I have almost 5,000 friends. But then what's going to happen is there'll be a ceiling. And once I have 5,000 friends, I can't go any higher than that. And we're hoping to reach more people than that, soon.
Yeah.
So.
Have you been, we haven't done that together. Have you been doing the promoted posts? We haven't talked about that yet.
I do them for certain shows, and I'm still kind of mystified by it, because there's sometimes I do one and it looks one way, and sometimes I like it. I'm not exactly sure what the difference between a promoted post and a I forget it. There's different ones where it like lets you put an image, or you just promote it right. Like if you go to your events page on your page, and there's like a listing of all your different events, you can hit promote right there. And I don't like what that does. It doesn't give you as much, like me from the graphic design standpoint, it doesn't let you like control what the picture is, or what the text is even. So I like to make a post, and then after I'm done with the posting it, then you hit something. I forget if it says promote or something, but then I don't, it's hard for me to see how it looks and stuff. So maybe you can help me with that. Like looking at them and seeing if they look good. So it's a learning experience. That's the thing that's been the hardest, is that
it's changing all the time.
It changes all the time. At least we're all on one platform now, but Facebook loves to change things. And you'll wake up one morning and it's like, oh, that button is not there anymore. What do I do?
Yeah. Yeah. So let me look at my questions that I had for you. What is the biggest challenge that you've had with these systems as they've evolved? Like, what is the biggest challenge that you had? Yeah, I know I'm echoing, Dawn. Sometimes this echoes because you're listening to me and it's annoying. But what's as your systems have evolved over time, what has been the biggest challenge? Is it time? Is it that Facebook changes all the time?
No, it's not really that, because you start getting to be this power user. You're like, oh, I can figure that out. So you can figure it out. And then you read, we have a lot of other musicians we're friends with who, will talk about it too, and we'll figure it out. But yeah, I think the biggest thing was, putting it all in one place, so that I made sure that there were checks and balances. So I have a spreadsheet, as you know. So because for me, I like have ADD, and I like always forget things, and they fall through the cracks. So coming up with what we call the Juicy Book, and actually that's changed over time too. It used to be a hard copy thing that we would write on. And, the different things that we do are, we have to send out posters to the clubs. We have to put the show on we have this thing called, we use artist data, which is where all of our tour dates go. And then they send out those dates to other parts of the web. So that's, I like your ring.
Portugal the man.
And then, so all the different things we do for Facebook, making an event, inviting people to the event. You don't want to have it be, 3 days out and you haven't invited anybody to your event yet. Those kind of things are easy to fall through the crack. So the hardest thing for me is just sometimes if I don't check in with my my system that I've made, which is just a Google document spreadsheet, then I I will go to it and like, oh no, I'm behind and I didn't do this. And usually I'm fine with that. But when we're on tour, when we went on the 7-week tour this summer, it was really hard to keep up because we weren't anywhere with internet and we didn't have time. And so I actually, that was the first time I hired someone to help me. And I got this. So that was what was really great about coming up with my system, though, which has evolved over the last 5 to 10 years. So,
what do you think having?
But what I mean by though, what is good about it is that I can now share it with another person, such as yourself, and have them help me. So,
what do you think having it? I think I'm wondering, what do you think having someone like me on the other end of your Google Doc checking in with it, does that make you go back to it more often?
Yes.
Does that make you look into it more often?
It does, yeah.
It's kind of like a checks and balance of it in and of itself.
Yeah,
I would think.
Now that it's interactive, I feel more of I better go over there so that I can communicate with Kara and make sure she knows what's going on. But like last week I was on the road and I was doing all these whenever my schedule gets thrown out of whack because I'm doing something new, which happens a lot with being a musician, then it can be, challenging.
But it would be even more challenging if you didn't have it. I mean, it would just be completely out of whack if you didn't have it.
Yes, and the other thing is we just came back from this music conference, and of course, in the music business, people kind of learn what to do themselves, and there's not as much of a network as there is with the regular business world. So we learned about some tools that people are using in like a regular office type situation that people at the conference said they were using. They were using them to like you can assign jobs and do things like that. So we may in the future move over to something that's actually an interactive program that's made for working with different people on a team where you're not in the same place. Because a lot of people work that way.
What are some of the tools I did want to ask you about the conference because I was really interested to hear about it. What were some of the things, the highlights for you? What was the name of the conference?
It was called the Future of Music Conference. And I'm just going to go to my notes because I had some really interesting, all kinds of great stuff that we learned. People talked about everything from how do you find time to do songwriting. And a lot of people were saying, because that's one of my big problems is that I spent so much time on this. I'm just very detail oriented. So when I go and do these posts on Facebook or when I write a newsletter, I just spend way too much time on it. And then also I'm just constantly distracted by these interactions on Facebook, which I do need to do. I need to interact with people that want to interact with me. Totally cool with that. Like they were saying, a lot of people don't want to do that as an artist. They just want to be an artist. They don't want to, or maybe they'll talk to people at shows, or maybe they won't. But I love interacting with people. That's one of the reasons. I mean, I'm a very shy person, but music provides me with this way to interact with people. And anyway, so they talked about, turning off all your devices for 90-minute chunks and working on songwriting and finding what time of day is best. So I'm still working on that stuff. But what else they talked about? A lot of technical things with ISWC codes and ISRC codes and how you make sure that your music has this digital backend so that you will not only will you be able to get paid for your music the correct way, but that your music will be able to be identified anywhere it goes. If it goes to Europe and gets played or bought, people are going to know what it is. It's not just you don't just have, an MP3 file that doesn't say what it is. Like you have to, when we uploaded our album, it had all this metadata, it's called. So we talked about that kind of thing, which is very confusing. But I think we've been doing a pretty good job with that.
Did they have, what was the technology you were talking about that had to do with like sharing
Yeah,
workload
I was
and
just kind
that
of
kind
going
of
down
thing?
my, I shouldn't tell you everything
Uh-huh.
that's in my entire notes, but that's what I was looking at. I don't know if I don't know where I wrote it down. It might be in Jim's notes. Um,
There's an application called Podio, Podio, that does something like
oh,
that. There's a lot of
yeah, I
applications
can't
like
remember
that.
what the one that they were talking about was. Actually, sorry. We like just literally got home at midnight last night, driving in that hurricane. But I can't remember what it's called. But it's like there's a bunch of them where
Hmm.
you can um, like actually Jim and I use something that's kind of a rudimentary version of that, and it's called Todoist. Have you ever heard of that?
Yeah. Yeah,
So
I've
it's
used
just a
Todoist.
to-do
That's
list,
useful.
but you can have different people be members, and then you can share things to those other people. So if we're all in a shared group, then I can put a to-do on and I can assign it to you, or I can assign it to Jim. And Jim
Hmm.
likes to assign things to me all the time rather than just so even if we're sitting together in the office, we might be doing something totally different and we don't want to interrupt each other. So that way it just,
Hmm.
instead of him telling me and just going over my head and I like didn't remember that or hear it, just gives me a to do,
Hmm.
a to do. And then when it's done, I check it off and he can see if it's checked off.
Because, you guys really run your bands like a business, which is how a successful band works, really. And I think that, when you do that, you need to be thinking of, a separation. And it seems to me that you do. You have kind of a, I don't, that's my perception of how you do it. And I'm not quite sure how you guys do that, but it's my perception that you kind of have a
Oh
separation of
yeah.
duties
Yeah.
to a degree. So how does that work with you guys?
Well, Jim does, well, traditionally Jim has done everything to do with finances and booking. I'm
Hmm.
not very good at dealing with people that want to book me because just, I don't like talking about you must pay us this much and you know what I mean? I just hate dealing
Hmm.
with that. So I'm the more the artsy person and I do the graphic design
Hmm.
and I am very good with technology, like anything with HTML or anything with, you know, I mean, sometimes he's really good at Facebook stuff too, but like I'm good at formatting, I guess, so
Hmm.
everything that has to do with our image, I guess, and our message. Well, he's really good at that too. So we really do cross over. Like I ask him to look at a lot of the things. If I've written something, I like to have somebody to bounce that idea off. Like, does it sound silly or,
Hmm.
but so
Yeah.
he does some spreadsheets with our expenses and our income. And he talks with Sue and
Hmm.
Phil a lot about, we need to rebook this. This is how, he always, what do we call it? The weekly gig report. He does that. And I, take care of the mailing list and entering the names. And,
Hmm.
so that's
A minute,
the
Mohammed.
stuff that you're helping with is mostly my stuff because
Hmm.
I'm the one that actually, it's my job to write the songs. So I need to have time for
Hmm.
that.
All right, Mohammed would like to join in. So if you'd like to have something to add to the conversation, we'd love to have you join in. So, hey, Mohammed, did you have something you wanted to add to the conversation? Hello?
I don't
Or
know if
not?
oh, you could hear him because there was music.
There
Okay.
was music. He seemed to go away though. Okay. Well, oh, and he's from Sri Lanka. Or I think that was
I liked
him.
the music.
Anyway, yeah, that was cool. Oh well. Anyway, yeah. So in thinking about bands in terms of I hate to break down. Sometimes I break down things too much, like a business and marketing and stuff. But in thinking about you got your chief financial officer and you got your marketing officer. You know what I mean? But really, that's you got to think about it in terms of that if you're going to make money sometimes, right? Um, and so in terms of that, using these tools that you found at the conference, they sound very, very useful. It would be cool if you could maybe when you find those notes, if you could send them to me, maybe I can put them up in a blog post. That would be
Sure.
really, really cool. That would be really cool. Thanks. Let me see if I had some. I think we're gonna have to wrap up. So, off the top of your head, what are some tips that you would give some of our listeners, for if any, artists that are trying to put together, their systems so that they can develop a way for them, because everybody has to put some systems together the way that is going to work for them, and your systems are very effective, but they're going to be different than, how somebody else is going to do it. I mean, I think they're very effective, but if somebody else is, an artist that's trying to get their marketing together, what are some things that you would suggest, for someone who's trying to do that?
Well, we were just talking about this morning about whether you needed a website, but basically you definitely want to have a web presence, and you want to make sure that you sort of service your web presence. You don't want it to just be a static static web page that just talks about who you are. You also want to make sure you have a place where all of your concert dates are and they're updated. They're not. You want to make sure all of the information you have about yourself online is up to date, and you don't want to have just like, because sometimes you go to a website or a Facebook page and it's like, oh, look, here's all their past gigs, or here's a gig that it says it's coming up, but this has actually happened 6 months ago. You want to make sure that people know you're current. And so, I think it's a really good idea to have a mailing list at your shows, and then make sure you communicate with those people. And so we have a whole system of how we do that. And, send out an initial email when they first sign up, like, welcome to our fan club. Here's the discount at our store, and make sure that they know about all the ways to contact you. Here's our Facebook. Here's our Twitter. Here's our, I love Instagram. So I do a lot of Instagram. You just want to,
the two sorry to interrupt you, but the two systems that you're using that I think are really great are the artist data and the Bandzoogle, are two that
is our website.
Using.
That's right. So
yeah, but you're using that for your emails, and I think that's a great system.
And the great thing about Bandzoogle that I like is anybody can make a website. Even if you don't know any HTML, you can easily throw up a website, and you can easily make newsletters, and you can do things like send out to a geographical area around your show. So what we found out over the years was we used to just send out an email to everyone on our mailing list about every show, and people would just feel like spam. Yeah. But if you get one that's like, hey, there's a show in your area, and we'd love you to come. Yeah. So then people, I think that's really helped a lot. But then you got to realize that some of your fans are going to be, and you can even try to figure out where are your fans. And that was something we talked about at the conference. Do your fans hang out depending on the music you play? Do they hang out are they more email people? Are they on Facebook a lot? Are they somewhere else? Like, I don't know, maybe they're on Snapchat. Maybe they're on more on Twitter. I don't do a lot of Twitter. I haven't really, I do a little bit of Twitter, but I know some forms of music are like really on Twitter a lot. So I'm just trying to get into that. But I know a lot of my fans are on Facebook, so I've been, concentrating on that.
Yeah.
So I would say just make sure you have a presence, make sure you interact. Don't just put it up there and just not look at it. You got to make sure you interact, and you give. The big thing these days is content. You want to put some interesting things out there that are relevant to your music, but not necessarily only talking about shows, or, you don't want to only push. You want to put something out there that people will find fun and shows who you are and shows your personality. So that's where I also have been doing all the work myself. I was just servicing like what the gigs are, which is very important. That's the most important thing, obviously, if you're a live performing artist. Or if you're, if you're more of a musician who makes music at home and wants people to hear it, maybe getting out your tracks would be the most important thing. So it depends on what type of artist you are and what your goals are.
Yeah, it really does. It depends on your goals, but yeah. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to meet with me, to speak with me today. And so where can we find all your music and information about you?
You can find, you can find us on erinharpe.com, which is ERINHARPE.com, or lovewhip.net, love and whip, one word, .net. You can also do those same names on Facebook. So it's Facebook/Erin Harpe or Facebook/LoveWhip. And I'm just Erin Harpe on Facebook, so you can find me. I have a few more friends that I can, I have a whole bunch of people waiting to be my friend, and I have to get on that. I will get to it soon.
All right. Well, thank you so much. And this was the Engage Your Fanbase podcast. Thank you for watching, everybody who joined in. And you can follow me on Twitter at Kara Karma, or on Periscope at LMN&R, where I scope live music every weekend. And that's live music news and review. And I'm Kara Karma from Engage Your Fanbase, the music marketing blog and podcast, and Simon Says Booking and Publicity. Thanks so much for watching today, and we'll be back next week with a podcast featuring Freakbase, where we're going to be talking about how to maximize your next CD release. Thanks so much, and I'll talk